at 125 pounds, we have a neat clash of styles as Portugal's Manel Kape is going to be taking on Ode Osbourne representing the States. He's the Jamaican Sensation. He's a teacher by night. He's a fighter by day. Well, really, switch that one around. It'd be weird if you were a night teacher, unless you're doing night school. Maybe you're Kevin Hart, but he's related to the PFL. So now we're here. And Matt, for Ode Osbourne, there's a great interview on the channel between him and our own JHK. They talk about self-sabotage, which was something that Ode really talked about after his last win against Jerome Rivera. He also hit on the fear of success, but what I really liked was his breakdown of this fight and his overall thoughts on the bantamweight division and the flyweight division. So let's throw it on over to JHK and Ode, and we'll bring it back.
It is. It was a huge opportunity, man, because he was a ranked guy in your first fight at flyweight, but they turned around and gave you a guy that was he should be ranked, but you know what I mean? Like, he's a former champion in a major promotion coming into the organization. So what do you think about that matchup? Was Manel Kape a guy that you've known before, or was it the first time you heard of him?
I had no idea about him. I was like, I saw that he, I saw his name pop up, and then I did some research on him, and I was like, okay, I was like, you can't sleep on this dude. He got some skills. He got some talent. You know what I mean? He's one of the dudes that he's fast. He's unpredictable. You can't sleep on him. You know what I'm saying? So I believe it's going to be a war. It's either going to be a war or he's going to fold, and I'm going to pick him apart. But who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like, all I know is I go out there and I make it a war, and you either break when I make it a war, or you make it a war. There's only two options. I don't give you the opportunity to do anything else. Either I'm in your face and you fight me, or you just kind of go out quietly. But I think he'll be in my face. I mean, I think he's gonna fight me. So that I'm excited for. You know what I mean? Because I love to just fight, man. I really believe that my potential is unmatched, and I love a good test because I have yet to find somebody that can handle my stand-up. Not one person that I fought yet can handle the output that I'm able to bring. So, you know what I mean? I love a good test, and I think he's a good test for me, and I love that. It makes me, like I said, it makes me get off the couch. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, let's go.
So for Ode Osbourne, didn't originally draw Manel Kape. He was supposed to be taking on Amir Albazi, which I would say is not an even easier fight. No. I think Amir Albazi for Ode would be a difficult fight. Now, for Ode Osbourne, you do the research on him, and he has a wrestling background, but you wouldn't know it from the way that he fights, because he is one of the most electric and speedy strikers you're going to find at whatever weight class he chooses to fight at. This is his true flyweight debut, and I can't stress that enough. The last time he fought, again, it was on short notice. Jerome Rivera, it was at 145 pounds, so it's kind of a weird one. But really, he has been a bantamweight throughout the majority of his career. He's taken on the former Rising Bantamweight champion, Manel Kape. And Matt, I'll let you fill everybody in. I said it was a weird clash of styles because Osbourne has the wrestling in his back pocket. For Manel Kape, he's got a little bit of the wrestling in his back pocket as well. He loved to wear the wrestling shoes over with a Ryzen. And he liked to float around in the ropes. Can't really do that anymore in the cage. But for Manel Kape, you talk fast hands. This guy has fast hands too. I think this is going to be absolutely fireworks.
Both these guys bought their hand speed at Costco. Like, they have extra. They have more than they probably need at home. It's like Ode Osbourne. You open any cupboard in his house. Oh, there's more hand speed. It's a good thing to have in excess. But for Manel Kape, it's been a really interesting UFC run, because I know we were extremely high on him coming into the UFC. And how couldn't you be? If you look at his run over at Ryzen, he was this unbeatable. Well, he wasn't unbeatable, but he looked so dominant by the time that he did leave that organization, and by the time that he did make his way over to the UFC, that when he got matched up with Alejandro Pantoja, who is at the top of this division, nobody batted an eye. It was okay. Kape makes his UFC debut against like the 4th-ranked fighter in the division. That doesn't often happen. Normally, even if it's like Michael Chandler got Dan Hooker. That's the type of debut that they gave Manel Kape. And he did look a little hesitant, and I do feel like that was one of those fights where, okay, octagon jitters are real. He had to get hit a couple times before he kind of woke up, and at the end of the day, if you lose to Pantoja, I don't really care. Pantoja's very, 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 very good, and he's one of those heavy-handed strikers in this division. Then if you look at Kape's fight against Mateusz Nicolau, it was a weird one, because I thought Kape was going to win that fight without a doubt. I really did. I don't love what I've seen from Nicolau. He's kind of hittable. Yes, he hits hard and he does have great boxing himself, but there's holes in his takedown defense, and I thought Kape was going to be able to go in there and run over him. And yes, it was split decision. I know a lot of people scored that fight for Kape, but I did not.
Let's read it out, because you're absolutely wrong. 22 votes on MMA decisions. All 22 had it 29-28 Kape, and in the first round, he did what he did in the Pantoja fight. In the Pantoja fight, let's talk about it. 30-27, 2 29-28. The trouble was, and I'm going to make this a Fight Night Picks thing, it's a Keith Richards effect. And he just could never get started up. He just kept playing the same riff, and he couldn't get started. And the commentary, it was, man, this guy's really hesitant. We haven't seen him this hesitant before. And then in the Nicolau fight, the first round, it was like, okay, he's a little hesitant. And then he started to pour it on a little bit more and a little bit more. And then by the end of it, man, he looked really good. And I thought that he won that fight. Maybe you didn't. I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts out there in the comments section. But the problem is, he's been hesitant at the start of fights. You cannot hesitate with Ode Osbourne, because in his 2 UFC fights and his UFC adjacent fight on Contender Series, all first round finishes. Now, Kelleher finished him in the first round, but the other 2 were first round finishes. And he's a quick starter, too.
Oh, yeah. And the thing about Kape, and listen, I'm throwing myself under the bus because of that Nicolau fight. I feel like my expectations for him are almost too high already. Like, I think that, okay, this guy comes in top 5 ready, but even if you look at his run in Rizin, there's things that he does struggle with. Like, even in Rizin, he's kind of a hittable fighter. He does blitz in a lot. He does leave himself open to bigger power punchers. And against a guy like Ode Osbourne, listen, Jerome Rivera isn't the fighter Manel Kape is, but I still feel like Jerome Rivera is better than his UFC tenure was. Okay, no, Jerome Rivera's not great, but still, what Ode Osbourne showed in that fight was his ability to throw long-range strikes in a division where not a lot of guys can. That's when I bring up the flurries of Manel Kape. He does have good boxing, but he is a guy who uses his threat of wrestling to really open up his strikes with his hands. And when he does blitz in, he's not at Marvin Vettori level for, like, keeping my chin tucked when I move in, but he does have a few sneaky tricks. He is a good fighter who throws an overhand into a double leg, and he will mix in his striking with his wrestling. But the thing about Kape is, even if you thought he beat Nicolau, we haven't seen the same version of the Rizin fighter yet in the UFC. I still feel like there is another level of an unlocked potential of Manel Kape. I don't know if he needs a camp change. I'm not sure what it is, but I do feel like there's a better version than what Kape has shown in his last 2 fights.
Now, for Manel Kape, you talk about camp change. He's been training in the States for this one for quite some time. For Ode Osbourne, Purvita BJJ, he has a teammate on this card a little bit early on in Jamey Simmons, as well as our own Hot Take Kate. You can find her over on Instagram. But Matt, I had a weird kind of realization when I was getting ready for this one, when I was watching the tape study. I thought to myself, I was so high on Manel Kape. He was in my, like, Ciryl Gane level of fighters, my Piotr Jans, and you have to go back to 2018 to hear these things.
Vicente Luques.
But when you look at it from Manel Kape, I thought, okay, was I, like, alone on this hill? So I went to MMA Prospects, where there's a lot of friends of the show over there. I found the article by Sean Bitter kind of previewing Manel Kape coming into the UFC. So they gave they gave the fighter a grade. Everybody on there were 9 different people, and then where they saw his ceiling at. I'm going to read you out of the 9. There was 1 A+, there were 5 A's, there was 1 A-, there were 2 B's. But out of everybody, 4 people said he was a top 5 fighter, 3 said he was a top 10, 1 said he was a title contender, 1 said he could even become a champion. Like, he was a future champion coming into the UFC. That's the kind of fire you had behind Manel Kape coming in from Rizin. But for Ode Osbourne, this is a guy that you can't just sleep on that Brian Kelleher fight. He gets taken down, he goes to scoot off his butt up against the cage and gets into a Brian Kelleher defensive submission of Kelleher just going to crank on the neck, pull a guillotine, and get all of his body weight on top. And Ode Osbourne had to tap with his foot. So that was kind of weird.
It really was. And for Ode Osbourne, here, you like the Celtics. We could talk about that. Marcus Smart we were talking about because it's trade deadline day or free agency. He could get traded. He's a great player, but his offensive IQ isn't great. Ode Osbourne's kind of like that with his defensive IQ on the mat, because that's exactly what that Brian Kelleher fight was. It was him kind of rushing to get up to his feet. He was trying to almost rush that position. And with Brian Kelleher, you can't do that. You have to go step by step by step, because if you try to jump from plan A to C and skip B, Brian Kelleher is going to lock you up with a guillotine. And when you fight a guy like Brian Kelleher, you should know those type of things. You're at the UFC, and these are the things we expect from you. He did erase that bad memory in his last fight, but I still feel like Kape is the better of these 2 fighters. I still like his wrestling, and I still like his ability to rush in off of his takedown attempts. I'm not putting Kape in like a Chad Mendez level, because Chad Mendes really is the poster boy for like takedown attempts into overhands, but it is a combo that he's not afraid to throw, and if he is mixing in his wrestling, it's going to keep Ode Osbourne thinking, and if he is thinking, and if he is reacting to what Kape's doing and not throwing the strikes himself, then I do feel like he's going to be one on the back foot, getting taken down or getting hit by strikes.
I mean, again, high school and college wrestling experience for Ode Osbourne. For Manel Kape, I mean, you talk about the threat of the wrestling, really it's the boxing that he uses. The neat thing that he does is if he's fighting from an orthodox stance, he throws a lead hook that's really, really sneaky. It's really fast. But then he switches to southpaw, and it's the right hook. And it's always a lead hook that you have to watch out for. He has a quick little L step, and that's the thing. When he boxes in the pocket, we talk about how quick Kelvin Gastelum can be at middleweight. Manel Kape's like that when he's boxing in the pocket with guys at 125. You can only imagine the speed difference, which is crazy, because I had it written in my notes, like, Ode Osbourne's in the 99th percentile of speed. I think, again, long-range attacks, and as far as speed is concerned, he has the edge over Manel Kape, but both of these guys are quick and to the punch. So if we have a look at the odds for this one, let's see. Manel Kape is the favorite. He opened a minus 200. He's minus 203 right now. Ode Osbourne opened a plus 170. He's a plus 166. He's had an extra 3 weeks of camp to get ready for this one. Let it slip in our interview that maybe Amir Albazi out due to a concussion. So not sure if that was public knowledge, but it is now. 854 total votes on Tapology, 72% Kape, 60% by decision for the 28% that have Osbourne, 51% by decision, 29% by knockout. I think if Ode Osbourne's going to win this fight, you win the first round, you show glimpses and shoot power in the second, and then maybe in the third you don't win it, but you still win the fight.
I'll be honest, if Osbourne's going to win this, I only really see it by finish. I don't think he can keep up with the combinations of Manel Kape, because if he isn't able to get a stoppage, it is going to come down to the volume. And with Kape, I understand that first round, it does take him a little bit of time to get going, but once he does get going, that second and third round are really tough to keep up with. And unless Ode Osbourne does enough to hurt Kape in that first round, I don't think he's going to be able to keep up with the volume in that second and third round. So if Osbourne can catch Kape trying to blitz in off one of those shovel hooks or a big overhand, then of course he could get the knockout win, but I ever so slightly have to favor Kape. Although he is a 2-1 favorite, I don't think he's really justified that in his UFC tenure.
I mean, for Manel Kape, his last win was New Year's Eve of 2019. He was supposed to have a fight in 2020, or he was supposed to have fights before then, but unfortunately they fell out. Even the Pantoja, that was the second booking of that fight. And he struggled with strikers. I mean, I know even Mateusz Nicolau, you would have thought, hey, he's going to implement his wrestling and his submission abilities. But for the most part, there was a lot of striking in that one. Manel Kape, again, I thought that he won the fight. I still think he's a top 5 talent. I think he's going to get a win in this one. But if you see a quick Ode Osbourne finish, do not blink. He even says that in the interview. You're not going to want to blink. You're going to watch this one. He's not, what's his name? Kai Kara France, but don't blink. Matt, both of us going with a former Rising champion, Manel Kape. You're not going to want to miss the rest of the fights on this card.
Just so I can cut you off, if Kape loses this fight, he becomes the Rising Will Brooks in the UFC. He really does. Like, you can't be known as the guy who knocked out Kai Skura. You beat Ian McCall. I understand that was a weird fight, but still, that's a big win. You can't be that, like, you know, dominant champion who comes over and then you lose 3 straight fights. You had expectations coming into the UFC for a reason. People expect you to be that top 5 talent. Like, he's lost 2 fights in a row and you still think he can be a top 5 talent. Like, these are the expectations we have for Manel Kape, so this is the time where he has to go out there and justify them.
Sometimes Will Brooks fights for XMMA, beats Steven Seiler, and listen, it all comes full circle. But again, both of us going with Manel Kape. You're not going to want to miss the rest of the previews and predictions, so stick around, and as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.